Very good morning and welcome to the Independent Republican Mike Graham. There it is. We've had it with this morning. That means, according to The Sun, that basically Arnold Clark and other advertisers are starting to pull their wares from this morning because it is a toxic brand, whatever Philip Schofield seems to think. Also, he can't stop, can he? This is a guy who's walked away, he's in enough trouble as it is, and yet he has to keep mouthing off. Blah, 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 blah. Nothing to do with me, Gov. Absolutely nothing to do with me. It was only 3 days ago he admitted to lying to everybody. He lied to his wife, he lied to Holly Willoughby, he lied to ITV, he lied to his lawyers, he lied to the Daily Mail, and he lied to his agent. Apart from that, he's obviously a guy that should be believed at every turn. What's he going to say he lied about this week? Unbelievable. Let's talk to Rafe Heydel-Mankoo, historian, broadcaster, Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum. Rafe, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike. Good to see you.
Now, I'm not expecting you to be a sort of hands-on TV critic here. I'm not going to ask you about the ins and outs of Holly and Phil's relationship on the sofa. But what I am going to ask you about is the state of ITV, which currently has a share price running around about 50% lower than it was when Carolyn McCall took over. Famously, of course, she used to work at The Guardian, so we know where her political kind of affiliations lie. She basically is being accused of making ITV too woke for its own good. Look at the people she got rid of. Jeremy Clarkson, Jeremy Kyle, Piers Morgan, all would be considered to be robust controversialists, perhaps, but certainly of the right to some extent. I know Piers would deny that, but you know, it's certainly anti-woke because that was the name of his book. She gets rid of all of those people, but she keeps other people who are so toxic as to have now got them into a great deal of trouble.
Yeah, exactly right. Look, I've been in Europe for the past 2 weeks, and so thankfully I've been spared all of the Philip Schofield and what he did in the broom cupboard at BBC and later on at the ITV. So I'm not au fait with all the details of the Schofield affair, but you're absolutely right here. What we have is the ITV showing just again that all of these woke companies merely engage in performative actions. So they want to appear good. So whether it's Bud Light having Mulvaney's face on a can, or whether it be here being seen to clean up the toxicity of ITV by getting rid of the controversialists, as you said, Clarkson and Kyle and Morgan. But at the same time, the real fox in the chicken's coop was still there all along, Philip Schofield. It just goes to show the blindness, the blinkered nature. If they think that you're on the right or that you're anti-woke, you are automatically evil. But yet they have a big plank in their own eye when it comes to the imperfections and the failings of those who are otherwise on side. But there's also the absolute hypocrisy because, of course, ITV's legendary daytime schedule from, Lorraine and This Morning and Good Morning Britain, it's all about wellness. It's all about improving yourself. You have agony aunts on there. Philip Schofield has sat on that sofa for, 20 years, listening to people's terrible stories of personal tragedy, of sexual abuse, of all sorts of deeply disturbing emotional issues. And he sat there nodding his head, whilst all the time he's had this secret in his own life, which he has been unwilling to talk about, but also he's lied about openly. And he's now
admitted to lying about it. I mean, as I said before, it's quite a record, even for our business, and I don't count, you're not quite in such a sordid business as we are, but here we are with a guy who's admitted lying to his wife, lying to his co-presenter, lying to his lawyer, lying to the Daily Mail, lying to his agent, lying to ITV. I mean, who else hasn't he lied to? And he's now actually put out another statement, which we're expected to believe.
Yeah, but that's my point. How can this man sit on that sofa for so many years? The sheer hypocrisy of this, not to actually realise that his life stands in complete contrast to what he's giving as an appearance on the sofa, but also that sense of entitlement. And we do know that there is a toxic atmosphere in daytime scheduling at ITV, in large part from everything we've been told because of Philip Schofield. And you would have thought that a fall like this, pride comes before a fall, and after a fall like this, there will be some degree of humility. But no, so steeped is he in his own belief in his own self-importance that he continues to issue statements like this. It's quite incredible.
One person who hasn't said anything, which is always surprising to me because he normally is all over Twitter on any particular opinion you would like, is Adil Ray. OBE, as he's known. He presents or co-presents sometimes Good Morning Britain. And, I mean, he's always banging on about issues of culture war. He's always accusing people of running some kind of, you know, white supremacy-style world that we all have to live in. He's got nothing to say about Philip Schofield or ITV, funnily enough. His only tweet in the last 9 days is to congratulate Aston Villa for getting into Europe.
Well, I mean, Adel-Ray is the grand poobah of hypocrisy. I mean, had this been an issue involving Piers Morgan, you know full well he would have...
He had plenty to say about that.
Coming out. And, of course, we know how vocal he was when Piers Morgan walked out of GMB, right? And I'm sure he was equally vocal about Clarkson when the BBC fired him. Again, it's the complete failure to actually... or the unwillingness to confront wrongs done by people on your own side. And you don't see this on the right, for example, you know? It's this complete blinkered nature of people on the left. And again, it's all performative when it comes to the corporations. So they want to be seen to be doing good, whereas, of course, it's all icing on the cake, whereas the actual cake itself is utterly rotten.
Yeah, it's rotten, and it's been going rotten for some time. Stay where you are, Rafe. I want to talk to you about migrants. A front page story in the Times today. British police bid to stop migrants leaving Africa, which sounds like a bit of a stretch for them, since they can't stop them landing here. But we shall see. Welcome back to the Independent Republican. Mike Graham right here on Talk TV. We're talking to Rafe Heydel-Mankoo. Lots to talk about on the immigration front, the migration front, because while you were away, Rafe, of course, we got these figures on net migration, which were sort of sold to us as a populace, that they might be somewhere between 750 and a million, probably 750,000 and a million in terms of net migration. It came in at about 606,000. But I made the point last week, as I think you did, actually it's the gross figure which is more important, the 1.2 million figure of people coming in 2022, that is the big figure that we need to talk about. What do you make of this government spin?
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. In fact, I gave a speech last month on the importance, actually, of not going along with this government's spin of net migration, which essentially what it does, it makes an absolutely horrendous situation appear only half as bad as it really is. Because we know 606,000 is the net migration figure, but the gross migration figure is actually 1.2 million. So we're talking literally double the situation. And of course, of that 1.2 million, 925,000 are non-EU nationals, 150 are EU nationals. And what I find remarkable is that everyone on this who's involved in this debate, be it the media, be it even commentators on the right, all buy into this net migration figure. And, you know, for people at home, net migration basically is all those coming in minus all those who've left. And the fantasy that they're trying to portray with this, the government is that those people who have left the country are just the same as those who've come in to replace them. As far as the government's concerned, it's a like-for-like swap, which is, of course, absolute nonsense, because who's leaving and who's coming in are of great consequence and significance, you know, to the future of this nation. Right. A highly skilled immigrant isn't the same as a low-skilled immigrant. And most importantly, of course, a huge percentage of those people who are leaving the UK each year, and it's risen exponentially, actually. One of the reasons it isn't actually 700 to a million net migration is because vastly more numbers of people have left the country this year than the ONS was actually expecting. And a lot of these people are British-born or who are culturally British, people who are actually fully integrated into society, which is completely different to those who are coming in, who will take years to integrate if they do at all. Also, the other sort of hidden figure, if you like, is the number of people coming here as dependents of those getting legal visas to either study or to work. And we know very well that many of those coming to work are working in the care sector and the NHS, low-paid jobs, as you say, pretty unskilled jobs, jobs that we cannot fill apparently in this country because people don't want to work for one reason or another. But I'm also not buying the idea that all of these students are coming here to study. They're coming here because they want to live here. They're bringing dependent members of their own families and they're setting up house here. And I don't think anybody could prove me wrong on that. Yeah, and of course we know that there are lots of bogus colleges and institutions which, of course, have been targeted, but there's still many of them that are existing which enable people to come over here on these bogus student visas as well. But there should be no excuse for someone to bring their families over, perhaps at the PhD level if there's a guaranteed path of entry into a career afterwards. But for most of these degree students who are coming over here, there should be no excuse for bringing families over. And I think overall, though, I do actually like Labour's idea of having merely temporary visas when it comes to the broader scheme of things that you were talking about in terms of NHS employment, in terms of those areas, fruit picking and so forth, where we can't get locals to do it. But remember, this comes at the same time as we see this surge in benefits claimants who don't even need to look for jobs in order to claim benefits. We've seen a surge of 500,000 people over COVID period who've only had online interviews, who've never actually been face-to-face with their benefits officers. We now have 4 million people who don't actually need to, and that's costing the nation £22.5 billion a year. Look, Japan has one of the lowest rates of migration. I mean, it has virtually zero immigration into the country. It's been able to actually sustain itself without having people coming into full healthcare positions and so forth. Now, they do have a demographic time bomb, but what's happening just at the right time, really, is this huge new revolution in AI and robotics. We're going to be seeing now over the next 20 years, AI and machinery taking over a lot of the roles of doctors, surgeons, nurses, and so forth, which may actually come just at the right time for Japan, which is basically entirely homogenous. So in the future, if we do these temporary visas, for as long as we can until this new revolution comes in, that may offer us some hope for the future, at least.
Yes, indeed. I mean, I've seen this morning a couple of adverts that are placed in newspapers in India from the British Council, which basically are advising people on how to stay in the UK after they've been here to study. Once you graduate, you can live here for 2 years, apparently, and they're actually giving people advice on how to make that happen and how to make that possible. And we know now, for example, that an awful lot of the people coming illegally as well as legally are coming from India.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the crazy things, including channel crossings. I mean, to come from India all the way to France, just to come into, makes a complete mockery of this, even more ridiculous than the Albanian situation, I would say. But of course, at the same time, we're being held to ransom, of course, because Britain is so keen to have a free trade deal with India, and India, of course, being this great, huge, burgeoning economy, is able to call the shots, and Modi's made it quite clear that, students are something that he's not willing to compromise on.
Right, interesting. And the front page of the Times today got a fascinating story saying the British police are going to try to stop migrants from leaving Africa. They're going to try and help governments in those countries to break up people smuggling groups, because what we do know is these people smuggling groups are so efficient now that they're basically going to find their prey, if you like. They're going to find people, some of whom will be able to pay them money to come here, others of whom they will kind of enslave, if you like, to bring here from countries like Eritrea, from places like Somalia, Ethiopia, all of those sort of countries, Sudan, where people are ending up in boats coming to Dover.
Yeah, but it's like a sieve. Once you try to plug one hole, another hole will open up. All of these harebrained schemes that they make good headlines, and they sort of convince, unfortunately, a large proportion of the population who keep voting for the Tory party on these blatantly false manifestos to control immigration, like Rwanda and so forth. The government simply needs to make Britain less attractive than France. It's not rocket science, We have an open black market when it comes to jobs on the black market, when it comes to restaurant workers and so forth. Landlords aren't really being forced to check the details of people who are renting from them, whereas in France and in Europe they are much stricter on those sorts of things. That's where if the government put its energy into clamping down on illegal employment in this country and really made an effort to cut benefits as well. I mean, they're now taking out ads, we've been told, quite rightly, for Albanians and others saying don't come to the UK. That's exactly what Denmark did. Denmark now has its asylum-seeking levels down to levels not seen since the 1990s. Cutting benefits is another way to do this. Half the benefits that you get when you arrive there. Don't put asylum seekers up for bail, for example. We just had stories now of Albanians cutting off their ankle tags.
Yes. Well, I've seen, and there are people doing that on TikTok. I mean, that's how obvious it is that they're doing it, right? And we're told this morning that something like 12,000 Albanian migrants have breached their bail conditions.
Yeah, exactly. And so, of course, you know, we've got this new illegal immigration bill coming through, which is supposed to be very strict by detaining anyone who arrives here illegally. But after 28 days, they can still apply for bail.
Yeah.
Why is that? This is a complete mockery of the whole situation. Albanians are the single largest foreign group in our prisons. It costs £100 to fly from Albania to Britain. If people are paying thousands of pounds to cross over the channel, they're obviously not coming here with good intentions.
I mean, also, I've been saying this for so many years now, and finally, you know, other media are picking it up, that many reasons why they come illegally is because they've already been deported once, because they've already been here, they've been found to have been involved in nefarious criminal activity, because the Albanians, as I continue to tell people, run all the cocaine markets here, they run all the cannabis markets as well, they've become the new kind of European mafia. You know, we've spoken to Gavin Mortimer about that over in France. You know, they run basically drugs and people across Europe. That's what they do, and I don't mean by that every single Albanian is a criminal, of course not, but many of the ones coming on the boats are. And as we can see now, you know, how naive do you have to be to give people bail and then go, oh, they didn't turn up for their appointment, really?
Yeah, I mean, the Albanian mafia make the Italian mafia look like the Vienna Boys Choir.
They do.
You know, I mean, it's an absolute scandal that this has been allowed to continue. When we had the Ukrainian refugees coming over, all we saw were women and children coming over. Those are genuine refugees.
Yeah.
When all you have are thousands of young men under 40 coming over, a significant percentage of the Albanian male population now has come over to the UK. You know that they're not genuine refugees. Albania is a safe country. Sweden has the right policy here. Anyone who comes to Sweden from a safe country is automatically deported. Albania is clearly a safe country. That's why people aren't flying over here. They're coming here by boat. Again, claiming that they're victims of modern slavery.
There are those who say Albania is actually a safer country than Britain now, because all the Albanian gangsters are living here. But there we are. This is Rafe. Great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Rafe Heydel-Mankoo, historian, broadcaster, senior fellow at the New Culture Forum.